This is the culture.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first official Cinema Wave conversation. We want to get right into our topic today, but if you would like to hear more about us and who we are, please check us out at Cinema Wave Media on Instagram and TikTok, as well as @_Culture Wave Media on Instagram. Also, we just want to say thank you to you guys for listening in and welcome to our channel. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I'm one of your hosts, Darian Scalamoni. I'm also with Liz Seiko, and I'm also with Zach Miller.
Great to be here.
And we're today going to talk about the highly anticipated series finale of Succession, which just went through 4 seasons on HBO. A great series. If you haven't watched it yet, you should probably get off of this video right now because, first of all, it's fantastic. You should binge the hell out of it. But it's also one of the greatest TV shows probably that's ever come out on HBO, and we're going to spoil a lot of it. So with that being said, from this point on, you've been warned. Major spoilers will be talked about, so please click off and come back and watch this after you guys have watched the series. So I want to start the conversation by asking you guys, what were some of your predictions for the ending of the series before we watched?
I had a crazy prediction. I know I talked to you about this like a while ago. There was a lot building up to the finale. I mean, a lot of like power moves that each of the characters took. My crazy prediction was there was going to be some like fallback on Tom with like the cruise ship scandal, and then he was going to get like fired or have no other Roy family member to get lay on because Logan
yeah
and yeah, that's right, we're going over spoilers, we are. So yeah, but so he has Logan is gone, and he was like his last guy.
Logan died. Let's get it out there. Logan
it's there.
died.
Yeah,
Deceased.
It was a major part, like one of the biggest episodes in the history of TV.
It was insane.
But
So I predicted that because Tom had no one else to lean on, that he would either kill himself or he would just be like completely out of the picture because
of the cruise ships.
Because of the cruise ship scandal, and I felt like they were gonna actually fully throw him under the bus,
Okay.
and then he was gonna kill himself because of the whole Shiv situation,
True.
the fallout. Like he had nothing, but that was my bold prediction. I was talking to DJ about it. I was like, I don't know if this could happen, but then there's that whole thing that happened with Kendall in season 1 and season 2 with the
kid
with the car accident. Yeah.
So
I thought anything could happen, and then the Logan thing, I was like, oh, something could happen. But what was your prediction? Like, what did you think?
I feel like I didn't have any major prediction until like the second to last episode because so many things were happening that I was like, I don't actually know where Jesse Armstrong's going with this. But so after the election episode was when I thought that the new president,
Mencken,
was going to team up with Madsen, and that they were going to like do some like sketchy behind the scenes thing where they technically steal the company from the family, and was just going to like screw them all over. Just because they were both being so sketchy on everything and keeping their cards really close and making deals, but then not following through with them. And so I was like, oh, these two men are snakes, and they're going to, like, take them for a ride. Because I feel like also the kids are stupid at a certain level and just think that they know everything, but, like, they don't.
I had a feeling that Madsen would end up on top no matter what, like, with somebody.
Yeah.
I didn't, because there were so many talks about how Kendall and Roman wanted to just take the company back.
Yeah.
But I thought he was going to end up on top. I had a weird feeling that it was going to be Tom. I don't know why.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't give you 100% of a reason why. There was just so much of this flexibility in terms of him backing down on being like a real human. Like he was the closest thing to like a corporate snake out of all of them. Like they all had major problems.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But he was just a corporate guy. Like that's what he was.
Yeah.
And I mean, you saw like with all the family members, they all had so many of their own personal issues. And Tom, though, I mean, his marriage was obviously in shambles. He didn't have something that was weighing down him with work and what work meant to him and all that kind of stuff. So I had a feeling it was going to be Tom. We're going to talk about in more detail in a little bit what happened with him and Greg.
Yeah.
But as him and Greg and their relationship evolved too, I always felt like, I mean, it could only go one of two ways, but it was either like he was going to die with Greg being the culprit,
Mm-hmm.
which somewhat happened. Like that was kind of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But then it winded up kind of even backfiring, and it winded up working out in his favor.
Yeah.
Wow, so you weren't surprised at all, though?
No, I really wasn't.
Wow.
I definitely didn't think it was Kendall at all. Like I never for an inkling thought he was gonna have. the
Yeah, I
company.
thought he would blow it up at some point by his own doing. Like I thought there was going to be something that stiffs him out of it, and at the end, it is his ego that pretty much gets it over, and his all of his
his mental
Yeah.
just fortitude.
I mean,
and illness
everything.
of what
Yeah.
his character is.
everything that he did leading up to that moment, both his persona and his like horrible strategy that he's been trying to build the business around. Like he was just not fit for the job. And I think that's like also what Logan was getting at earlier in the season when he finally sits them down at the nightclub and he goes, "You are not serious people. Like
Mhm.
there's just no feasible way my company is going to go to you guys because they were just not fit to do any of those tasks and to hold the same weight that he could all those years." So I think you see more of that in the show, and I think that's really cool. Cool. Excuse me.
We lost the soldier.
We lost. He's down, everyone.
Yep. I knew my voice would crack at some point. It's okay.
I thought it would have been a little like all of a sudden, what is the point of the whole show if Kendall took it back? Because it's like episode 1, he was supposed to have it. So then it's like, why did we even go through all of this just for him to get it back?
I love the parallels though of like the opening episode of the whole
Oh,
series
yeah,
and the
yeah.
opening of this is literally a reflection. Like
Mhm.
it's him in the car in the back seat, and it's him walking up, and everybody looking at him and expecting that this is going to be the guy that runs the company. And to some semblance in the beginning of the series, there really is a belief that that's going to happen.
Mhm.
But there's a weirdness to when you see it again in this season because I don't think anybody really believed that they were going to be able to pull it off,
No.
and they were going to get in each other's way. And that was always something that I think that's something that also just kind of crescendoed as the seasons went on. Like
Yeah.
you always knew that there was like the mentality with all of them. I mean, you even see it with Connor's character, like who's kind of like a buffoon, but like the way that they treat him and like it's not family, it's family, but it's not family. And you get a glimpse of that in the All Hail the King or whatever. What were they saying?
A meal for a king.
A Meal for a
Meal
King,
for
which is a great
king.
scene. But the Meal for a King scene, it's like you have that little moment of seeing that they do love each other,
Yeah.
but there's so much getting in the way of them having a real relationship as siblings,
Mhm.
and this company is at like the center of it. But I do think, Liz, I'm curious on what you think. Like, what was the turning point for you with Shiv's character? Because we find out in this season that she's pregnant, but there's a lot to her character that kind of develops throughout the season. She has great moments, but I wanted to know what your thought was on her as a character this season and just in general. Like, cause she flip-flopped a lot too.
Mhm.
So
So I think I have a theory about Shiv that compared to Logan, I think out of all of the siblings, she is the most heartless, just like Logan was. Because Kendall, at the end of the day, he wants to be seen as like the good person that does good things for humanity. Roman, at the end of the day, he kind of wants to be seen as an asshole, but really is still like a child at heart. So he doesn't have that thick skin to actually like ruin people's lives.
Mhm.
And then Connor is just like off in La La
Clueless.
Land living
Absolute
his daydream fantasies. And I feel like Shiv is the one that actually would like ruin somebody's life and be
Yeah.
like, I don't care, I did it for a reason that would help me. And I think that came out this season specifically. I feel like in the past you saw her like teetering of being like, okay, is she just pretending to be this way just to get her foot in the door, or is she actually kind of like a cold-hearted person? And I feel like this season just solidified it. Even with the ending moment between her and Tom in the car, I feel horrible. I feel like
Yeah.
Shiv has the most depressing ending, even though Kendall looks like he's going to just
Yeah.
yeah, it's implying
Yeah.
it's implying
it's
something.
implying something
But-
that Kendall, but who knows? They left it for that reason. But I feel like Shiv's ending
Mhm.
is almost more depressing because it's like here she is still wrapped in this rat race, even though
Yeah.
everybody else is now out of it in her family. She's stuck in it, also stuck in like a loveless marriage with a kid that like she kind of doesn't really care about, just because like
Yeah.
they never talk, like she's never openly talked about it like with
Yeah.
anybody.
I was
in a
going to
positive
add
way.
to your point with that too. That's actually a really good point because in the finale so much happens, and I didn't even think about her pregnancy because
Yeah.
there's so many other factors in the final episode. And I think to your point with the heartlessness that she has, like she's never a mom or a mom preparing to have the kid and like, oh, I would love to get the kid this, or like I want to be there for the kid. She never like once
No.
says
She's like,
I
this
want to
isn't a
be a
problem.
mother. Yeah, she's like, and then even Tom, when they're having that confrontation at the newsroom, he's like, "Is this a move that you're trying?"
Yeah, which
was like, "Whoa, yeah,
wild.
that was crazy." And obviously, she didn't want to hear that reaction, but in the same light, she buries that reaction every time
Mhm.
she has a moment of weakness in her
Yeah.
eyes. She buries it, and
Mhm.
that's like crazy to me. So,
Which, don't get me wrong, I love her character. I think
Oh,
she's
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
ooh, curves,
Yeah.
so much detail. But something that I wasn't really clear about, and maybe I just missed it, is like, when did she actually start to decide of like, okay, I'm actually not going to vote yes in the final board meeting
I
scene?
agree.
Because that was something for me, is like, I wish that there was a little bit more of like an actual turn. I read a few things online that said like she was seeing Kendall of like how he would be in the board meeting, of being like an egotistical, like masochist leader, and so she didn't like that. But I feel like it was a little out of left field for her to just storm out of the boardroom.
Well, I would push back on that theory specifically,
Okay.
just because she actually has a line of dialogue where she says, "You always want to be like dad, but you'll never be dad." Doesn't she say that to him?
When did she say
When
that?
they go into the room together, the siblings.
Yeah.
So he chases her out, and then she's like, "You so badly want to be this thing that dad was, but you'll never be that."
So when do you think she like started thinking
I don't think
though?
I don't think she ever necessarily wanted him.
So you
to have the
think that
company,
in
ever.
the nice moments of them like swimming together?
I think that was her being vulnerable, and I think, and it's funny you brought up the Roman thing, because I think Roman in general, like, he has all these. I think he has like, it's very clear he has an indication of like a lot of what he does is reactionary.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like even firing Jerry, like it was just it's reactionary, and the woman of the studio head or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Excuse me. So in those kind of situations, I think that you see after he gets he jumps in the protest, like you see this moment of real, like it's the real Roman for the first time, where you see it, where he doesn't he uses like these name calling techniques as like kind of a shield to protect himself, but he's the one that wants to be the most human. I mean, you see it a lot this season. You see it at the funeral.
Yep.
You see it in others again, like even when they get the call about Logan, like there's so much that happens in terms of like him just being like, yeah, well, he's not gone. Like, what are you saying? He's not gone. And that's like the other two were like, no, you have to be mature to this. But I think it's interesting because I don't think Roman ever thought that Kendall could do it either. But he also didn't have enough within himself to do it. And I think he felt confident when it was him and Kendall doing it together.
Yes.
Because he had a fallback. But I think that Shiv always believed that she was the one that should have taken over. And I think she finds that, like, when is it when she started? That's season 2, right? When her and Logan start getting, like, more in touch with one another. Like, he's kind of like, he's like, I'll bring you in and I could start to kind of...
And then, after her haircut.
Yeah.
She cuts her hair after the wedding.
Yeah. And that's season 2, right?
This wedding, I think,
Or
is end of season 1.
Yeah, but, like, so the season where he's...
Season 2 is chopped hair.
Yeah, and then season
takes
3
on
is when
the
Jerry
vibe.
comes on.
Yes.
As CEO, yeah. And then they're kind of, like, trying to train Shiv to be the next thing, but...
So you think that Shiv kind of was like just enjoying the moment of being with her siblings at the time, but didn't actually believe, like, I'm gonna let.
I think she wanted to believe.
Mm-hmm.
I think that she wanted to believe that this is what the best thing could have been. And again, I think there was a part of her that believes that it's the only thing that would have saved her brother.
And she was vulnerable just hearing the news that Matsson kicked her out, basically.
Yeah.
She was like...
She played her hand,
That's not true.
and she tried to play her hand against her siblings, and it didn't work.
Yeah. And then she was like, well, now I feel like I have to take my sibling's side. I think it was a little immediate with her reaction shift, and I agree. I wish... I don't even think they did it poorly. I just think that it was such a big conclusion that she drew that we didn't see that shift right away.
There just needed
But-
to be a small cut to her, just like kind of like
Hesitant and
just
yeah.
like a look in her eye of being
Yeah.
like, wait a second, I don't know if I actually want to do this, because all of a sudden it was just like Shiv's uncomfortable and is storming out of the room.
Yeah, maybe they wanted to shock us in the same way that
Maybe.
I kind of like the
Not
immediacy
Yeah,
of
'cause
it.
you like
I
it?
did, but I like things that are like, I don't know, like in a weird way. I
We
like
were
things that are
also-
anxiety driving.
Okay.
we were
Like-
also as panicked as Kendall was because of the
Yes.
camera work. So I did actually like that. But to your point, emotionally and with the arc, I think.
It was a little
was a
just
little-
like,
Yeah.
oh, we've brought you guys to this point, but just kidding. Let's take you completely a different way. But do you think, because I
Yeah.
think Shiv is probably the most diabolical and like is always playing games and like thinking.
Mhm.
Do
Mm.
you think that she did it because she now is the only sibling with her hand actually in the company now by being married to Tom?
See,
By
I
being
don't
married
know.
to the CEO.
Like, explain that to me again.
So do you think that she voted yes because now it got both of her brothers out of the business completely and now she's the only sibling?
No, I don't
that
think
has
she.
any
I really don't think she
connection?
thought about that.
You don't?
No, I don't think
I
she
think
thought
she
about
just-
Tom in that way. I think that it literally came down to the fact that she could not trust Kendall
Yeah.
to take the
Mm.
It was the
company in a
ego.
direction. And
But
plus,
why-
you got to think about even in the political aspect. Like, think about the election episode, which you talked about. Like,
Yeah.
she's so against what happens when they call Wisconsin, and she looks at him and she's like, "Are you really going to let this happen?" And I don't think Kendall necessarily wants it to happen, but again, he goes against his better judgment
Mm-hmm.
to do something that's going to put him in what he thinks is a better position.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
she's like, I think he's disappointed her too many times. And again, I think it's weird because it's like we can't go into the psychology of these characters, obviously.
But then how does she get back into the car with Tom? Because the last time that we saw their conversation, she was ready to go to war.
I think that's
against
her
him.
submissing at that point.
Submissing though to then take control in a way.
That's what I don't know. I think it is. I don't even know if she like that. I was
Because you
surprised.
see what I mean of her then having a hand. She's then married
Yeah,
to the
and it's-
CEO of her father's
Mm.
But
company.
she is like, yeah. I that definitely happens. I think the half-hearted like handhold
Mhm.
is the thing that she's not like. She's unwillingly like, I guess I'll do this if I have to, and she's like, I have nowhere else to go at this point, and I think she feels like she can weevil her way back in through Tom than her
Mhm.
siblings because she's been in that vicious cycle of being kicked out by her siblings and not taking her seriously. So in some weird way, she probably thought that Tom was the quickest route to the top, or she just, like you said, didn't want to see Kendall win. I think it was
Wow.
a combination of things. I think Kendall, she definitely didn't want to see Kendall win because, like, for her own reasons, she wanted to be on top, and then also she knew he would be horrible, and he's a bad person.
Yeah.
So
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think that there is an element that could have been possible. I just don't. I don't believe
Yeah.
that personally because of the way that her relationship with Tom has been throughout 4 seasons. I don't think that especially because Tom's the one that screws her over in the 3rd season. So I don't think that they're like, again, if we're talking about her character to a T,
Mm-hmm.
and she wants to be on top, which I mean that's kind of
She
the
does. That's
psychology
the
of all
whole-
the
yeah.
characters. But if that is the case, like either way, she's not going to be on top. And I think that there could be a situation in which, yes, she can maybe get there in a different position with
Mhm.
Tom being there. But I think it's more so that like she would do anything to make sure that if the Roy legacy was going to go on with somebody with the same name, it was not going to be either of her siblings because she believed she
Mhm.
was the best candidate.
So do you think it's her submitting by getting in the car? That's what you think?
No, I think it's just her submissing to the like. I think it's her just being like, "I'm tired. I'm done."
Interesting.
Just being like I think that it was. I mean, that scene in the other room with Roman and Kendall is such an emotional breakdown,
Mm-hmm.
and she says it when she says the one scene where she goes, "I love you, but I can't effing stomach you,"
Yeah.
and it's serious, you know, because it's real and it's visceral and it's something where I think she's just like, this person is so disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't recognize who this person is. Where at the end of the day, as much as she has had all these games with Tom, I think she genuinely believes Tom is a good person, which might not even be true either. But
I
I'm
know,
saying
right?
I think that she, to some degree, believes that,
Yeah.
especially because of the way he's comforted her,
Mhm.
despite turning his back on her. So that's the interesting thing and the greatest thing about this show
I know.
is that there's so many different layers to every single character, which is why I think it's so great as a whole. And I know one of the things that we kind of touched upon a little bit, but we can dive into a deeper conversation about it. It's like most people I feel like are happy with the ending of the show, but some people always want a little bit more of what's going to happen next, right? Do you guys think that you would have liked to have seen a future in which like the ending of the show wraps it up in a way where like we have a little bit of a time jump, like 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road,
of where all the characters end up,
kind
of?
Yeah.
No. Because I feel like they kind of did that just by showing each of them in their respective places. Like, Kendall, I think, is kind of finished in life. Like, although he might have not, like, a tragic ending, he's never going to be as big as his father ever was. And he's just going to kind of live a life that's never reaching to the heights he wanted. Roman, I think, is going to just live the life that he's always dreamed of, which is just being someone, just a fun person, but like is also
he's just rich and he's getting out too.
Yeah, he's going to be rich, have trauma that he never has to talk about, and that's going to be that. And then Shiv, I think, is just going to have a depressing marriage, but be in her political or like business status, and I think she's okay with that. And so I feel like they did that, but I don't know if I would have wanted to see them all 5 or 10 years down the road. I might have been more disappointed.
Yeah, I don't think adding a time jump would have really helped much. I think it was so different how they did this ending, I think, too. Like, it didn't feel like a proper narrative conclusion with, happy endings and hugs and farewells. It was really nice how Succession did it different with, Shiv completely swept the rug out from under Kendall, especially, and the rest of everyone else. And you're just left to sit with the same chaos that Kendall just experienced. So I think that was better to me than just having a bow on top and like narratively wrapping it up like other shows and stuff like that. And even if there was like 5-10 minutes of a time jump and they're like 10 years and there's another baby in the picture and Tom's on top, like I don't know if it would have done anything else for me, because you feel those emotions and the weight of it already. And also I do like the fact of the imagination behind it, because you kind of draw your own conclusions to what happens to them.
Yeah.
Like Tom, you have no idea if he becomes more despicable and like what he does with Greg, like, and Kendall, like if he actually does like kill himself, or if he ever gets his family back, or if he ever lives with himself. And then Roman is just in this void of a bottomless pit he just can't seem to get out of. And I think I don't like, if they drew a little too many conclusions, it wouldn't have been the same, I think.
Yeah, I think this is a very rare example of every single character gets the ending that I shouldn't say that they deserve, but every ending that I think gives you some sort of semblance of being like, yeah, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Like to a full degree. Yeah. Like I think the one thing that I saw online too, which was super interesting, especially with Roman's character. So the last shot you see of Roman is he goes to a bar by himself and he orders a martini, and they show there was like, it basically showed like the breakdown of throughout the seasons. Whenever he's with Jerry, she's always drinking martinis. Because there's a semblance of him that still has this personal connection to Jerry, and like this, I don't know what it is. I mean, again, it becomes weirdly sexual in some of the seasons, obviously, like with like big things like the picture and everything. But then there's other times where it's like there is an aspect of it that is weirdly maternal because of his relationship with his mother and the relationship he had with his father, and he wasn't treated well by his siblings. So I think just in terms of that, that's interesting too. But then even my favorite shot of the last episode is when they go through now Willa and Connor's house, and they have the whole system of the stickers.
Oh yeah.
And he puts a sticker on Greg's head.
I loved it.
And I laughed out loud, but at the same time I was like, holy shit, man. And they
Really
both get what they want. Like in a weird way, they get what
Yes.
they want. Tom still has control over Greg, and Greg is the one that helped him get there. I mean, realistically, he did. And then at the same time, he's like, well, you know what? Like, I think I can hold on to you. You want to know why? Because you're as flexible as I am.
Mm-hmm.
And if there ever was another, which I hope they never do, but like if they ever did any,
spin-off.
yeah, like if they ever did a sequel or a spinoff, like I could see it as if like, and again, it might be the most cliche thing, but it's like you see Greg eventually take over the company, and that's the only
I would love to see
family.
that
My mom had that as like a joke. Like I think she thought it was like she was like, it's gonna be Greg. I'm
It's
like,
gonna be
there's
Greg.
no way it's gonna
There's
be
no
Greg.
way.
But that was like a
It
season
would-
1 theory that everyone
Yeah.
was like, it's
Yeah.
Greg.
Yeah, but it was the familial thing. It was like you
Mhm.
could still kind of hand the company over to somebody, and it's still technically in the family, but it's
Mhm.
not one of the kids. So it was super interesting. But I mean, I guess since we're on the topic of Greg too, like, do you guys think he should have been fired for what he did, or do you
no.
like,
No, he Tom deserved that.
yeah,
So I also was, to go off of your previous point too, and he was like, I got you, like, after like he completely just, bitch slapped Tom, and then he's like, then you're like,
Wait, let's get into that
My-
first. The fight.
yeah, okay,
Yeah,
all right.
well, the
So
fight's
let's
great.
go- let's go through that. Let's unpack that. Like that was, I mean, it was warranted because Tom was just like, yes, Greg went behind his back for sure, but I mean, he did what Tom told him. He's like,
Mhm.
use information when you need it,
Yeah.
and he needed it, and he used it, extorted him, and then Tom just goes in there and thinks he can like horse around with him again, and Greg just like completely
Smacks the shit out.
I know.
annihilated his face. Yeah, so that was great. And I was here for it. And Tom, I think there was like that soft like reaction. He was like, "What? You just hit me?" And then he like went right back
Yeah.
at him. And then immediately like you jump ahead in the episode, and Tom is like in charge now. And then
Mhm.
my first reaction was like, "Oh, Greg is so done." Like I thought Greg was like toast. I thought he was going out the window or something. But
Their
he was,
relationship
like-
was my favorite throughout the
Yeah.
show, though.
Mhm.
And
So-
the way that it wraps up, I feel like is
Yeah.
perfect. Like in such a way that, I mean, you see it from that's the first episode, isn't it, where he's like really, really messing.
Oh,
with it.
it's
Yes.
so
when they go to the
abusive,
the softball game or whatever
Yeah.
it is, yeah, and it's
And he's like, "What is?"
Yeah.
I think he's like, "Are you gonna kiss me? Do you want to kiss me?" Or
he
something?"
calls him
Do
his
you
little
want
Greglet.
something?
That's the
Yeah.
thing is at
Yeah.
the first, yeah, and I mean, then it's like, who's the cook in the kitchen at this point? Like Greg's the one that
Yeah.
almost cost you your job,
Mhm.
and he could have
Do you
ended
think
up.
he gained like the whole reaction? I was expecting Tom to completely blow up, so I think. Do you think he gained some respect for Greg because he slapped him? Part of me felt
I don't
like
think he gained
did.
respect for him because of that. I think he gained respect for him because I think he has been around Tom for so long, and I think
Mhm.
he's literally grown into, in a weird way, mini Tom, where he's
Mhm.
like, again, he's flexible. Like he's willing to
Yeah.
bend in any which
Yeah.
way to try to, and he was with Tom the whole time until the very end where he was doing something because, again, he's also oblivious. So he
Yeah.
called Kendall and he was like, listen, I have some information. But I think that that's the respect part of it where Tom was like, damn, man, you actually did something
You
that
did
could have
something."
screwed me over. Like you really did.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, I don't know. I just love their relationship, and I think that they're like the most quotable characters on the show, and they're just great. And I
Yeah.
feel like I mean, I think everybody on the show was great. I just think that they kind of came out of nowhere. I
Yeah.
feel like their characters, and they were ones where, like, again, it developed over time, and I think they started being featured more and more
Mhm.
because there was so much to love about their relationship, you know?
Yeah.
Liz, what was something that you think there was enough left for them to continue to maybe make another season if there was? Like, do you think you didn't think it was a premature ending, right?
No, I don't think it was premature at all, but I do think that there were a few things that maybe they could have, like, a question of mine, they focused so much on the election just for it to not really come up as, like, a main player in the final
Yeah.
episode.
Even
Which-
earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a big thing. And they're, like,
It was a
talking
big
about this
thing. It took up
guy.
an entire
Yeah.
episode, and so I wondered, like, why they didn't even let it kind of be a playing factor. I think it was more that maybe they just wanted to explore that feature of, like, powerful, wealthy people and how much weight they have in an election. I think that's what they wanted to explore. But so that was something that I wish that they had talked about a little bit more. I love Jerry's character, and so I wish they had given her just a little bit more of a solid scene,
Yeah.
letting her out than Kendall just saying, like, oh, we're just gonna pay her off. Like that's why she's here. We're just paying her off.
Yeah.
I felt like there was so much history between her and Roman that maybe they could have let something happen a little bit more between the two of them, and just like a little bit more something solid happening.
Yeah.
Part of me though thought when I saw him at the bar, I was like, oh my god, could you imagine if like Jerry like ends up
Joined him?
like joins him?
That would have been great.
I would have loved that.
That would have been. That
She
would
was
have
one
been.
of my favorite characters throughout the whole thing.
She was great. I love all those older characters
Yes, I
too.
thought they were so
Frank and
good.
Carl. Yeah.
But no, I mean, besides those two things, I don't really think that there was anything major that they left out. I mean, do you guys?
They left. I don't think they left anything out.
Or like untied ends, kind of?
I was gonna say the election too. I think.
Yeah.
Just because of the like, it felt like, especially when it gets called in the election episode, and then Roman goes out into the streets and there's like the riots and stuff. I was like, is this gonna play into the finale? Like, is something chaotic gonna happen where is something as extreme as this is the city gonna burn or something? Like, I don't. It seemed like such a heavy thing.
Or the riots weren't even a thing in the final episode. Like,
Yeah.
It was like,
Yeah.
oh,
It was,
they're done.
It was yeah.
Doesn't matter anymore. And so I just wish they had brought that element in a little bit more of like
Yeah.
the pressure, or like, do they get caught with like calling the like why was that needed, that episode?
Yeah, and maybe they'll, like, you could assume too that Tom and ATN might also get tied up with some legal battles, because they were alluding to that as like the election committee was going to investigate them on if they called it and then they swayed the election in any way. But there was even some other information that could have been explained a little further with that too. But yeah, I would say like the lobbying and power moves in politics and stuff like that could have been like another season. But at that point, if they did another season now, the kids are forced out, and then it's just like Tom, and then how do you integrate the kids coming back in again to try and
It's
make
just
them
too much.
So that would be like,
I also
I
feel like
would do
they
that.
just didn't want it to start going downhill, because you know how sometimes like once you not kill off, but I mean get rid of like one character, and then it starts to become smaller and smaller cast. It starts being a little.
Yeah, I thought as a whole, I actually thought it was probably the best season of the show,
I do too.
which I think a lot of people do too. I don't know if I'm in the minority or majority there, but the one thing that I thought was really interesting, especially about the way they wrapped it all up, was if you take, like, this is my own personal opinion, but when you take a look at that episode as a whole, until we get to the vote, it's actually like some of the most tender that it's ever been in throughout 4 seasons. Like, it's not a very anxiety-inducing. There's not a lot of crossing over besides like the Mattson with Shiv, but you see not only the a meal for a king scene, but I really love the scene when they're in the house bidding for all the stuff, and they go in the room and you see that like Logan's family is the people that he worked with, and as terrible as he was to a lot of people, and he very much was, there was a level of why people like Carl and people like Frank and people like Jerry stayed on with him, because there was a level of respect and there was a level of love there, you know, that they all developed. Like, I think, I don't know if they talk about, they might have in previous seasons, but like Frank, Carl, and Jerry all having families. Like, I don't know if they do or not. And we know that, what's his name? Hugo has a daughter, because we find out about that. That's pretty significant. But that was eye-opening to me, because it's like, Logan does have the capacity to do that, and he just doesn't have the capacity to do it with his kids.
So I don't think it's his kids. I think it's because I picked up on this, that Connor was the only one out of the siblings there.
Yeah.
And I think that because Connor wasn't going after the crown of like the legacy so hard, there was room for him to have that father-son relationship, because Logan didn't feel that competition to be like, oh, they want to take it from me. And so he was able to just say, like, you're my son. While with the other 3, he saw them as rivals. He saw them as, they just want to get rid of me so that they can take my throne. Yes, they don't actually want to have just a relationship with me. They want to take what I've made. Well, Connor just...
Connor didn't care.
Since episode 1 was just like, I just want my dad to love me.
Yeah.
And like you saw that too when he was like, oh yeah. Like,
And he makes an effort. He shows up for everything.
He shows up. He planned the entire funeral. He cared. He he was the only one that knew of like where Logan bought his burial spot. He's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, Dad showed me this place, and none of them
yeah.
knew.
Oh,
And
that's a
then
good
there's-
little detail.
Yeah,
that I
and
didn't pick up
so
on.
Oh.
that's why I think that's also a big moment of showing like,
Yeah.
look, they were just blinded by.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And then there's that other level of that relationship too with Logan was when his wedding is happening,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, "Why is Dad going to make another deal? It's my wedding
So,
day."
yeah.
And he's like, "I've been doing in a nutshell. He's like, I've been doing everything I would hope that would make him enjoy me because I'm not being conflicting. I'm not trying to take your business and."
Yep.
Wish you could support me on my wedding day. And then I remember he's like, he doesn't go in the room with them when it's like
Yeah.
the passing of his dad. He's just kind of like, no, I want to get married. I want to do this
Yeah,
stuff.
I want to do
This
this.
is for me because now he's like, I think in a way too, he thought that he's stealing this day too for me
Mm-hmm.
because he's passing on and that type of thing. He's like, well, selfish bastard. He's like, another thing he has to take. But I think it was so embedded in him that he was like, how, like, he shouldn't have even been there in the first place. He should have been here for me.
Yeah, it goes back to what you were saying too in this season where they have the talk in the club for his rehearsal dinner or whatever it is, or bachelor party, whatever it's supposed to be for Connor.
We're in the karaoke room.
Yeah, the karaoke room.
Yeah.
But he goes, "I love you all, but you're not serious people,"
Mhm.
and it's true. Like Logan is a brute, but he was 100% Logan, and you see that throughout the whole entire series, where you see Logan doesn't really shift a lot. Like he is who he is, and it's very evident, and you see it throughout the whole entire series and the funeral episode and all things like that. But there's all these different ebbs and flows with the kids, excluding Connor, like the three main kids.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was super interesting the way that they kind of showcase their relationship as a family, and then the last time you see Logan on screen is this jovial kind of like Santa Claus-esque version of that character, which is so. But is it? But it's just like it was super interesting to me, and again, like it actually it pulled my heartstrings up a little bit, and you see the character start to tear up, and like they all I think Shiv puts her hand on Kendall, and then like he's like kind of hugging Rome, and it's like, wow, this might actually work. Like they might actually really believe in doing something, and then everything goes downhill from there.
Which I did love that because I feel like throughout the whole season, I've been kind of waiting for all three of them to just team up with each other to really be like, you know what, let's get rid of all of our issues and just like take care of this business together. And so I love that Jesse Armstrong gave us a little piece of that before completely just letting them go at each other.
Yeah, that's why I feel like it's almost a perfect finale, because it has such a great balance of the tenderness and then the anxiety. So again, like that might be why I liked it, because it's a real switch. Like it just kind of happens on a dime with Shiv. But who do you like? I mean, again, I guess the obvious answer is Tom. But like, who do you guys think was the real winner? Like at the end of the show. I mean, there could be multiple answers for this. We've kind of touched upon it a little bit, like Roman to a degree, maybe. But what would you guys say? Zach, do you have somebody in mind?
Yeah, I would probably say Mattson, because of all of his dirt that came
He's
up
great
this
this
past.
season, by the way.
It was
I'm so
awesome.
glad that they got
He
to.
became like a regular in
Yeah.
a way for this year, and he was in most of the episodes, and I was very happy that Skarsgård was back. I feel like he made off like so well compared to how he could have tanked. Like so many times there was the India numbers, which is like literally fraud. Like he could go to jail, someone could leak that, something could have happened. The deal could have blown up. I'm surprised the deal didn't blow up, that they knew that information and things still happened. And then there was that weird like scandal that he was a part of with
Yeah, with
Shiv.
Emma.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
and then Shiv is like, you drink people's blood. Or what,
Yeah,
what did he say?
he was like,
He
I-
froze
I
his blood and
sent
sent it to
her
her,
blood
right?
or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah, like,
weird.
Very Dexter-esque
Yeah.
for
yeah,
Succession.
very time's up. Like, get out of here, man. Like, get out of here. That shouldn't happen. So, I don't think he didn't get any consequences. I think for any of his actions, for the most part. Yeah.
Even when he says to Tom, there's no consequence for that. That he wants to have sex with his wife.
Oh my God.
There's no consequence for that.
And that
Makes him
solidifies
CEO.
your
Yeah.
point. That
Which
is
is
like he is so eager to go in the trenches and work. Literally keep his head down and even sit with the fact that, oh, this guy wants to screw my wife, and if I'm willing to sell my soul to do that, like, and become a CEO that I've always wanted, I'll do it. Like,
Yeah.
he couldn't even come back at that and be like, wait a minute, dude. You just don't say those things.
Yeah.
Like, he couldn't. He was
He's
like,
like, we can speak transparently, right? And he's like, yeah, of course.
yeah, and then he knew
Yeah, I think
in
he
that
said
moment.
something like, "Yeah, we're men," and I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, what?"
Yeah,
It was
he,
crazy.
like, he totally had Tom, like, by, I don't even, like, he just completely ruled over him. He knew Tom would cave. I think he was actually using that to bait him and see what he would do and see what he would say to really see if he would fall in line after that.
Yeah.
And then it was another power move, I think, and he did fall in line. I mean, but how do you not say something to somebody like that after he's talking about your wife like that?
Yeah.
And also, maybe he didn't love her after all. Like,
Yeah.
If he isn't going to say anything.
I know, Liz, there's one thing I mentioned to Zach that I'm curious on your take, because I saw this online. I thought this was actually a really interesting theory in terms of why Mattson might have decided to go with Tom.
Okay.
But, so at the funeral episode, the only one that's not there is Tom.
Mm-hmm.
And when he talks to Shiv about it and he asks her specifically why he's not there, she says, oh, he's working. You know, Tom, he's always has to work. And he had this mentality that no matter whatever Mattson did, there would always be someone that would be working hard for him because that's all he really cared about. Which, again, I don't necessarily know if I agree with that. Like, I think Tom does love Shiv to a certain extent. But I thought that was an interesting theory because it's like that might have been the shift in Mattson's head to be like, all right, well, you know, and because he talks about it at the funeral episode too. He keeps bringing up the Shiv that she's pregnant.
Yeah.
So then, I mean, technically speaking, she's not going to be there. And even though she's like, yeah, I'm going to pop the baby out and then I'm going to be back in a week.
Yeah.
But like, I don't think he believes that. And I think again, he just has this different viewpoint of Tom after hearing that like as close as he was to Logan, like this is a guy that's going to work and he's going to work for me and he's going to be able to be the American CEO that he needs and people like him and the markets will even out. So I'm curious on like,
So I think
what do you
what's
think
funny
about that theory?
too is about how you say like Shiv mentioned like, oh, Tom's always working. So in the beginning of the finale, when they're like prepping their numbers and Shiv's like ranting and like going off, he's like, what about Tom? Like, what do you think about him? And she's like, oh, he'll just back whoever is like like he'll do it for whoever has the most money and like whoever's there, he's there for them. And so I feel like in a way Shiv just totally like screwed herself and just made
sold it up to him.
Tom to him and was like, he's nothing, but he'll just do whatever he's told, and that's what he wanted at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But so I'm gonna go back to the question that we were just talking about of who is the real winner
Okay.
of, and I'm not. My answer is not just based on like who took the company overall from first episode to ending episode. Willa is the absolute winner of the series because that girl started as a prostitute who everybody was just like, who cares? You'll be gone in a month. And now she's living in Logan's apartment.
She's got her cow print couch.
Her cow print
Writing
couch.
the play that
And
she's
she's
been
working on her
right?
And
place.
she's about to work on her place.
That's
You know
a
what?
good point.
That woman, applause.
She made off.
She
really
made off.
It was so like I shouldn't say it was predictable, but when the dialogue started happening too, and he's like, yeah, and she's like, well, you know, and Connor's gonna be in Slovenia, and you know, I have a play to work on. It was just. I agree with you. Like in terms of
from beginning to end.
yeah, if
her
we're talking
or
about
Greg.
character growth,
Her or Greg, they're the ones
Yeah.
that really had like the biggest start to finish.
I love. Oh my god, Greg is just such an interesting thing because I remember he's like, yeah, I want to try to get a job, and my dad or my uncle or his grandpa, he's like my grandpa's like, you know, like Uncle Logan, can you get me a job?
Yeah.
And now he's like, he's gonna keep. They're
The
implying
assistant
he's
to
gonna
the
be the
CEO.
right hand of the CEO
Yeah.
of the
And
company.
meanwhile, all he wanted to do was get his job back as being the mascot.
Yeah.
The amusement parks.
Oh my god, I always forget about the
The
amusement parks.
That's where he started.
Oh my god, that's where Roman started too, right? He was the head of amusement parks.
You know what would have been great is if Tom, instead of putting the sticker on his head, he walks in with like one of
The
the
mascot
mascot
head.
head.
Oh,
He's just
my
like, here you go,
God.
buddy.
He's
There you go.
So
Go back
good,
to
dude.
parks.
Here's your job.
Go back to parks.
Oh my god,
And
that
then Greg would have been like, that's all I've ever wanted.
He would have been like, so.
That's all I've ever wanted.
that would be
All I want.
that would be so
That would
funny.
have been like the dagger in the coffin right there.
So in general, though, like again, there are some series finales that are like very controversial, especially in recent years. Like I know, like Game of Thrones is one that everyone talks about, is a major one that a lot of people don't like. Sopranos, I'm a huge fan of the Sopranos ending, but it's very divided. I feel like Dexter is one that I'm so glad that they got rid of it and then they did a new series after it. But in terms of like, do you guys think that it was a successful finale in terms of not only wrapping up the season, but I guess the series as a whole?
I do. I think it was like dramaturgically, it was a good. Oh my god, that's
a great drop right there.
That is a good drop. There you
Did
go.
you mean to do that?
There you go, guys.
Did you?
No, I actually didn't mean to do that at all.
Wait, you dramaturgically.
Dramaturgically.
Yeah, it was.
He got
great.
ripped apart for that though. And
I know.
He ended up being correct. That is a word.
Yeah.
So don't come for me. No, but I feel like it was how it's meant to be. There was no major shock. I mean, Tom to me was a little bit of a surprise, but overall I thought it was solid. I wasn't let down. Not like other shows.
Yeah.
Dexter's trash.
It is. It's a bad ending.
It's a bad ending.
For the
and
flagship.
I'll argue with anyone.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Dramaturgically.
It's
Your best Kendall impression.
it's like the best show ever.
That was pretty good.
Like,
That's
it's
honestly
great.
That was a
pretty
good
Like, it's
impression,
great.
honestly.
I mean, like, come on. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, I'm done.
Did you-
sing his rap? We're sitting.
L to the
Uh,
OG.
I'll probably
So
spike the
great.
mic if I.
Honestly, so great.
Yeah.
Oh my god. But in
it
terms
was
of
good.
just wrapping it up,
I mean, yeah, it was. I mean, nobody saw a lot of those endings coming. Like I said, I liked how they didn't tie a bow on it. I like how it just kind of swiftly ended. You were caught up in the chaos. Very different from other shows that we've seen, and also like a business show is not like action packed. There's no like gunfights. There's no like somebody has to die at the end. Like you're expecting there to be a power move, I think, which was the whole like show overall. So yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, I wouldn't add anything to it. I'm not that good.
yeah,
at
I agree. I think it was the closest thing to a perfect ending that you could have for a show of this caliber.
Yeah.
And just the way that the show organically grew over time. I mean, I feel the viewership is another testament to that. Like, I didn't see the numbers of what the finale was, but I know that the show grew tremendously over season to season. So I feel like the best thing to maybe wrap up the whole conversation as a whole is, like, in terms of the legacy of the show overall throughout, like, the 4 seasons, like, what do you think of it? Are you going to miss it? Like, maybe just something that you would be able to encompass to wrap up how you feel about the show in general. I feel like it's one of those shows, at least in my own opinion, where like it was on my radar when I first started watching it. And I remember watching. I think I watched it live on HBO when it first came out, which I think was 2016, maybe around 2016, 2017. But
Maybe 2018.
yeah, it might have been a little later.
I think so.
I'm not sure. But anyway, regardless, like I really enjoyed season 1. And then to me, I felt like season 2 had like a major jump, and then it just kept getting better and better. Like I feel like the last 2 seasons, like you could put so many of those episodes in like the top 10. Like there's so much that happens, and or at least like the season 2 finale, which we talked about a little bit. Where they're
press
on
conference.
No, that's
Or
the
is
one.
that-
I'm pretty sure the season 2 finale is the one where they're on the yacht. They're trying to find the sacrificial
That's the press
lamb.
conference, though.
Oh, is it?
Because then that's when he goes to do the press conference of saying,
Like, I'm gonna take it.
I am.
Oh,
the
yes,
one
you're
who
right,
did
you're
it,
right,
but
you're
then
right.
he throws his dad under the bus.
Yes,
So
you're right.
good.
But that, like, and I feel like that's where the show kind of kicked it into another gear.
Really?
like, yeah.
I loved it. So much, so
I've loved it always too, but I just felt like at that point I was like, oh my god.
He's coming for you.
Yeah.
Like he's saying it to the world. And then you're like, oh snap.
Yeah.
He just told him on his own platform that I am going to be the guy, whether you like it or not. So I do agree. I think that was like the episode. I was like, oh
Yeah,
snap.
I think it was the oh shit moment. I definitely do. I think it was the moment where everybody was like, wait, are they really doing this right now? Like
we
this.
didn't see it coming.
No,
Because we didn't know
well,
it.
we
They
also-
had the speech plan.
And not only that, but his father was the only one at that point. I think his dad knew at that point, right? That
Yeah.
he killed the kid?
Yeah, because that's why he said.
Yeah.
That's why he was gonna do it at
Yeah.
first.
I think that was the season 1 finale.
Yeah.
It was where he's consoling him.
Yes. So again, for him to make that big of a turn, that he's going to go at his father's throat, was something where it was like, yeah. So that was, at least for me, that was one thing for me. But in terms of you guys, what you guys kind of final thoughts on Succession as a whole? Yeah.
You want to go first?
I feel like I'll probably re-binge it in like a year and a half. I feel like, because honestly, it's just so funny at certain parts, but then it gets like the serious tones, and it's almost like a tragedy comedy. I love it. I think it's so
The writing is so good.
witty.
So
It's so funny. I also feel like rewatching it, I am gonna see things and be like, I didn't even pick up on that the first time, just because of how smart they also talk so fast and articulate to each other, and are just always throwing curveballs at each other.
The insults and all the banter. Yeah, it was so sharp, the dialogue.
In a year and a half, I'll let you guys know if the rewatch
I found
holds up.
something new about it. I would definitely say I'm going to miss the complexity of the characters and their own motives that they had for themselves and the company, and their relationships that were intertwined with each other in the show. Like, all of the characters like almost dip into each other and their schemes in like so many different ways. So I would say the complexity that they all brought to the table, and then I mean, just this is some of the best television acting you'll ever see. Like, all across the board, it's just unbelievable what they can do, and they were all so perfectly cast too, like to their roles. Like, you can see Kieran as Roman, you can see Jeremy Strong as Ken, like all of them, and it was just so. I will also say too, I wanted to add that the show just felt so Shakespearean in a way, of like power moves, like almost in that Shakespearean way of like who is going to be the successor for the throne, and it's literally that. It's just for business, and it's tailored for business. So I loved the whole, like, Brian Cox was just the evil king, and everyone's trying to undermine him and supersede him and be the successor and just be greedy and steal all that. So I love that they added almost like classic storytelling with modern takes and modern acting. And it's just so complex of a show that even like general audiences can enjoy. So I really loved everything about the show.
It's kind of like Succession maybe did Game of Thrones better than Game of Thrones did.
And definitely better ending.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. But anything else we want to add, or we?
I want to end with, what are our favorite characters from the show? And what's your least favorite? Who's the worst and who's the best?
I can't even say, like, I don't know if I have a worst, because this is a rare example of, I don't know if there's a single character that I dislike on the show. Like, I mean, again, you hate them. Like, there's certain characters where
there's
you're like,
terrible people.
yeah. My favorite, I think.
Alright, we don't have to do worst. Let's just do favorite.
All right, I would probably, my favorite character is honestly probably Tom.
Okay.
It probably is, and I think it's because of the relationship with Greg and the kind of banter that they have together. It's so outrageous at times, and again, it's like he's just trying to have somebody like that he can lean on to, like, literally smush to make himself feel better. And again, like talking about what Zach was just saying with the complexities of the characters, I think that Tom is probably the most complex out of all of them, because you never really have a full read on who he is, and he's because he's flexible, you know. So my pick would be Tom Wambsgans. Zach.
I would probably have to go with Logan, I think.
Okay.
Just because, again, horrible
Logan's
person.
great too.
Yeah, horrible person.
They're all
I
great.
should not like this guy, but he's one of the most interesting characters because of his obsession with greed, and then, his relationships with his kids, and all of the like lingering side effects of his bad parenting that he's had on like Roman, Kendall, Shiv, Connor. Like, there's different side effects of his like abusiveness, I think, that is present in each of them. And then also, he's like so complex to the point where there are elements of him in each of the siblings.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Logan for me, just because he's also just such a force when he's on screen, he's he honestly steals pretty much every scene that he's in. Like he is such a present person, and Brian Cox is like he's so good. Like he's been great in everything, but this is like his career-defining performance, I think. So,
Yeah.
Which one's your favorite?
So if they gave Jerry more of a presence in the last season, she would have taken it, but they just kind of like put her to the side. So I'm gonna go with Cousin Greg. Because he just brings comedy to the messed up Roy family, and he's just great overall. I think physical comedy, perfect timing, makes me laugh just walking into a scene being so tall and always hunching over.
He's just like gangly and just like
there.
limbs are everywhere.
He's just there, and he just wants to always make everything better, but like he can't. He makes it worse.
God.
He makes
There's so many. I
everything
mean,
worse.
I feel like there's so many scenes with him that like stick out.
I know.
100%.
So
So
many.
he takes it.
That's a good. That's a good.
Oh,
pick.
Jerry, love you.
That's a
If
good.
it is
pick.
to be said, then it shall.
So great. That is a drink for a man. Oh my goodness. But anyway, so I think that's just about going to do it for us for our season 4 and series finale of Succession. Again, if you guys are tuning in for the first time, please subscribe to the Culture Wave Media Network here on YouTube, and also be sure to like and share with friends. So again, I'm Darian Scalamoni. I'm here with,
Liz Sato.
I'm Zach Miller.
and we'll see you guys next episode.